Hey, everybody. It is my honor to have promoter extraordinaire Rich Engler. Rich, thanks for joining me. There's so many things I want to cover. You have a book called Behind the Stage Door, which is, I read a ton of rock biographies. This just cracked my top five. It's the way it's laid out. Like, no, seriously, because
Fantastic.
I am so fascinated by the business end, and I want to delve into it. But the 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 thing that's really sticking out right now is how you lost money on that Monsters of Rock tour. I actually went to the opening show of that in Alpine Valley, Wisconsin.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I want to get to how you get bands here locally, because I'm gonna do an article actually on the paper. But so I want to encompass all that. Let's start with the book. So, what inspired you to write this? And then let's go through the timeline on it, because and I'm talking too much, but and I'm going to let you talk, but it just blows my mind. I mean, the Paul McCartney story right off the bat. So let's go let's go into the timeline and go forward from there.
Okay, so you asked me how and why I wrote the book. Well, that's a pretty easy question to answer, because every time somebody realizes who I am or what I did, somebody goes, "Oh, that's Rich Engler. He produces those concerts or whatever," and then they come up to me and they go, "Oh man, who was who was the biggest jerks? Who was the nicest? Uh, what was the biggest catastrophe? What, they ask me all these different questions at different times. So when you get people asking me about 100 questions over several years, I said, you know what? I need to write a book. I'm tired of answering these questions, and hopefully I can answer some of them in the book, and people read the book, and it can be fascinating, hopefully. And I go, well, when I write a book, I don't want it to be, I just don't want it to be about me, because I don't want to write about myself. I want to write about my experiences and my trials and tribulations, and I call them traumatic experiences in some fashion. And I want them to be funny. I want them to be sad, and some of them, almost a religious experience, and like I had with Bob Marley. And so then I started. So I think I started in 2012 writing this book, and it took me about a year to write it. And I have a trick in writing, is I'm left-handed, and my left hand never touched the paper. I record everything.
Okay.
So I record my stories, and with the laughter and the feeling that I want, and I hand it off to a person who's almost like a stenographer, that that writes down everything that I said, and tries to capture what I put on the video, on the recording, onto paper, reduce it to writing. And then from there, the stories come in, and then my wife is the editor, because she reads tons and tons of books constantly, and so she corrects anything that she thinks that I misquoted or whatever. And a lot of the things that we had to look up for dates, because I don't certain ones stick out in my mind, like the Bob Marley September 23rd, 1980. That you can't forget. And certain things like Paul McCartney, I knew it was 2 nights, and I knew it was February 2nd and 3rd, or the 3rd and the 4th, but I thought what year, so I had to look all those things up. So it was a lot of research that went into writing the book. So it finally came out in 2013, and I was going to get it printed overseas, and I was getting all these prices, but they couldn't get me a copy of a proof. They go, well, no, once you send it to us, we print it and send it to you. And well, I ordered originally 5,000 books. So I decided, or I was going to, and I thought, boy, shipping and everything, I better go locally. So I went to a local printer here that prints the yellow pages at the time. And they were just like totally flipped out over the book. They go, oh man, we want to be a part of this. We love it. So they gave me a decent price. So I printed 5,000 books right off the bat. And so they called me, and they showed me a proof and everything. And I had a designer, Dennis Costley. He was great. He's quoted in the book. You can see he gets a lot of credit that we came up with the design and he followed through, and there it was. So they called me and they go, hey, come and get your book. So they take me in a back. I go, hey, we have it in the warehouse. You can get them. And they roll up this double roll door. And as far as I could see on pallets, they go, there are your books. I go, oh, am I in trouble? I said, I don't even know if I'm any books. And now what am I going to do with those things? First of all, you have no idea what 5,000 books looks like on pallets, and it had to be like 20 or 30 feet or more back in this warehouse. And they go, when you get them out of here? I go, maybe never. And they go, well, we can't store them. And the owner looked at me. He goes, well, maybe we can. How many can you get out of here now? I said, well, I have a supermarket that's willing to take the books, and I'm going to sell them on my website as well. So anyway, I'm about done with the story. So anyway, I get the book. I get I don't know, 250 out of there. I load my SUV up twice and take them to my house, because I figured I'm never going to be able to put my cars in the garage the rest of my life, because if I get those books out of there, then I'm going to be stuck with those things. So the good news, when it came out, I had a lot of writers do reviews, and they were flipped out on it, and it got high praise. And thank goodness I started selling them through the supermarket. I had 32 supermarkets that were selling them, and some bookstores and whatever. And bingo, in a short amount of time, I think, I don't know, 2 years, I sold all of the books. So that was fantastic, and I was just I was just overwhelmed that people liked it.
It's amazing. So it's a who's. I mean, it lists every. I'm reading this. I'm like, okay, Paul McCartney, who's at the top of the top, but you got the Stones, U2, Madonna, Kiss, Aerosmith, the Eagles, ACD. I mean, you name any rock royalty, it's in this book. So, and the reason you get to that, so you start out in a band in the Pittsburgh area, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And then you become the biggest promoter in Pittsburgh. So walk us briefly through how that happened.
Okay. So I was going to college, and I had a band in high school, a combo, because the Beatles did not come out yet. And then when the Beatles came out in 1964, my combo had to change into a band. We grew our hair, and I changed the brand of music. We were playing lounge music and surfing music, anything, because none of this British invasion hit. Once that hit, the world changed, and changed my life forever. And with this movement that took place, I then My band got fairly famous locally, and people were calling me for my band. So I booked Joe's band, Bill's band, Mike's band, Mary's band, Helen's band. All these bands depended on me, and I only wanted to see my band work and become famous. But here, next thing I know, I became a businessman because now I had all these bands under my wings and dependent on me. So in 1969, there was quite a ride from 64 transitioning. So I tell my parents, like, I'm quitting college in 65, and I'm going into the music business. And my dad said, Rich, I hate to tell you, son, that's not a career, that's a hobby. Because he wanted me to work in a mill because that's what he knew. And I'm from a mill town. I came from nothing and had nothing. So I thought, well, I know what I don't want. I think that I can really make something here. So I booked all these bands, and that got super famous. And then one day I get a major call from a university, St. Bonaventure University in upstate New York.
Right.
And they, can you get me a national band? I go, yeah, I can do that. So the next thing I know, I'm booking Johnny Winter, the Blue Oyster Cult, all these new bands, the Eagles, and instead of making hundreds of dollars for a local band as a commission, now I'm making thousands of dollars, $1,000, $2,000 a night, booking these national bands. So I watched these colleges and universities and churches and schools promote these shows and watched what they did wrong and what they did right. And the next thing I know, that I was starting to book my own shows. I would buy the bands. David Bowie, King Crimson, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, JoJo Gunn, the Eagles, all those now were really peaking. So I bring David Bowie into Pittsburgh for the first time in Pittsburgh. And not only was I the promoter with a couple guys that were backing me also at that time, I was the opening act. So I was the producer, the production manager, the opening act, and everything. So I did that for several shows, on and on and on, until one day I booked Yes in Erie, Pennsylvania, in their peak, in their biggest first album, and I was on stage, and the stage door opens, and I see the band coming in, and this guy in a big Tanuki fur coat, he's looking for the promoter. So he asked the security guard, I'm watching out of the corner of my eye while I'm playing on stage, and the security guy points to me on the stage, and I see this guy gives a big hop, and he runs into the dressing room, slams the door, and I go, well, I better end our set. So I quick end my band set, and I'm all sweaty, and I get the check, and I know I owed him. After I had the deposit, I owed him a balance check. So I go and pound on the door, and he opens it up. He goes, what do you want? I go, I'm the promoter. He goes, I thought you were the guy and the drummer on the opening act. I said, I am. I'm both. He goes, man, you don't understand. This is the biggest band in the world right now, and you have them here in Erie, Pennsylvania, and you're on stage instead of paying attention to them. I said, I'm paying attention. He goes, no, you can't pay attention. You can't do both. I go, is that a law? You can't do that? No, it's not a law. It's a practical sense. So he takes the check and slams the door in my face. I go, ooh, I'm glad that's over. Well, it wasn't over. The next day, the person that supported me in New York City had the big agency, had everybody, Rod Stewart, everybody you could think of. And she calls me, Barbara Skydell. She calls me and she goes, Rich. He goes, how'd the show go? And I go, it was great, Barbara. Thank you for getting me the show. She goes, hey, I just heard a fantastic story from Brian Lane, the manager of Yes. I don't know if he was drinking or what, what the deal was, but he tried to tell me, and she's laughing. She goes, he tried to tell me that you were in the opening act and you were playing on stage. And I go, well, I was. She goes, oh my God, I can't believe it was a true story he was telling me. She goes, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm not going to tell you any more shows unless you tell me right now what side of the stage you want to be on, either on the right side with the band or on stage with your band. I said, I'm deciding right now, I'm going to be backstage with the bands all the time producing the shows. She goes, you're on. Thank you. And I told my band the next day, I'm done. I'm not going to play again. I never played again. And I became not only a major promoter in Pittsburgh, we became one of the biggest promoters in the whole United States, winning awards from Billboard magazine and Amusement Business for producing the most shows at a theater, because we then bought the Stanley Theater, and things started to really roll, and my life really changed.
And then you go into the partnership, correct?
That's correct. I was doing all these shows on my own, and my biggest competitor was Pat the Caesar in Pittsburgh. And little did I know that he did not like the music business. He liked the real estate business. So he calls me one day. He goes, hey, let's get together. And I was a little suspicious. I didn't really want to get together. The way he explained it, he's out of the music business. I could handle everything, and we parlay the money we make in the music business into the real estate, and he would be happy with that. And one thing led to another, and that was great. We struck a deal somewhere around 73, and in like 75, the Stanley Theaters, where I was doing most of my shows in Pittsburgh, and every time I do a show down there, the manager would come and say, Rich, why don't you buy this building? So I go, oh, someday I might. So sure enough, I tell Pat, I said, hey, I think we can buy the Stanley Theater probably for a reasonable price. Well, it wasn't reasonable. They wanted $1 million. And in 1975, that's a lot of money. It's still a lot of money. Yeah. So, but Pat handled that deal. He was able to go. We were able to get, I had to put my house up and his house up on his ransom on the note, and we were able to make a deal, and we bought the Stanley Theater. It was a 3,500 seat dying movie vaudeville house in downtown Pittsburgh. We turned it from that to the #1 theater in the whole United States, beating out all the other theaters in the United States with the productivity, the total gross at the end of the year, and the number of shows. And we did that for year after year, and it catapulted us into like the second or third promoter in the whole United States, right behind Bill Graham in San Francisco.
Okay, yeah, well, who's legend? What makes the book great is it has everything that you want in a book. Like it has intrigue, it has suspense, it gets kind of scary at times, because I don't think people realize you're paying up front a guarantee to these bands. You mentioned the cuts get less and less on top of that guarantee, but the stories that just stick out, I mean, right off the bat, boom, with Paul McCartney. So we're going to address that. The Monster Rock thing I brought up. The drama you have to go through with Madonna and all these prima donnas, Eric Clapton, like, is he? So let's start with Paul McCartney. I don't want you giving too much away from the book, because people need to buy this book. It's Behind the Stage Door by Rich Engler. People need to buy this book. It's just, it's great.
You can get that on richengler.com.
Yeah.
It's very easy. Get it on Amazon as well, but richengler.com is the easiest. I sign them, I'll personalize them. And so if you want one that you want to read it and then give it to somebody else, I'll put somebody else's name on it. Hey, Joe Rock or what. I write a lot of different things. I take my time, and I get them out. We have a little mailing department, and we get them out in 2 days.
Yeah,
So,
we'll get that out at the end of the interview too. You know what? I don't want you going into too much in that because we want people to buy the book. But
well, I talk a little bit about that Paul McCartney story, but
yeah,
why I opened with that, because being a musician, I learned that you start out with a gigantic song, a big song, then you keep it strong, and then you dip down with something heart heart grabbing, slower, or sad in the middle, and lag it, and then end big, and bring out the big songs at the end, and as well as the beginning. And that's how I patterned my book, like a show.
yeah,
And that that's how it was. So this Paul McCartney thing's pretty unique. So I was beyond thrilled to land 2 nights of Paul McCartney in Pittsburgh in the 17,000 seat
yeah. So
facility.
you're at this point, you're getting the Penguins Arena at the time and the Steelers and Pirates Stadium at the time. So it's a mixed bag because your guarantees are getting astronomical and you're with these giant groups. So there's more on the line for you. So continue.
That's right.
Yeah.
People, and I have a video out too. We'll talk about that. Not a video, but a film, because a national producer read my book and said, I want to make a film out of this. So the film's out too. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the Paul McCartney story was I took at the Penguins Arena. That's correct, a hockey arena, and I put the first show on sale with Paul. It sells out immediately. I called back and I said, "Hey, can we do the next night?" They go, "Yeah, you can." So I do the next night, put it on sale, and boom, it sells out. So Paul comes in, and in his contract, he wanted nobody in the venue at all for sound check. So nobody was in there, but myself. I sat back in the back and listened, and sometimes on the side, backstage. And I thought the sound check was great. And it became showtime. And the manager comes to me. He goes, "Don't open the doors." I go, "The doors are already open. Remember, it's an 8 o'clock show. I opened the doors at 7 o'clock. It's already it's 7:05. Oh, okay." He goes, "Paul didn't like the sound check. He thought his voice wasn't up to par." And that's where I'm going to stop. I'll keep everybody in suspense.
Yeah.
Of what
It is.
what
This
happened
book
after.
has intrigue and suspense, and there's things that it gets your heart rate up because of the amount of money you're talking.
Yes.
So
Well, that's what I was going to say, because in the film, there's because everybody asked me, "Rich, well, what do you really do? What do you do? Are you a producer? Are you a promoter? Or what are you?" And in the film, I say, "Well, I'm all of that, but what I really am, I'm a big time gambler. It's like you're throwing big money down on a bet.
well,
I'm a big time, because it's a bet that I'm going to
monster,
sell enough to break even, or I'm going to go down, or I'm going to make some money."
so the
And that's
Monsters of Rock
exactly,
thing.
I really spell that out a little bit in the book, but I really spell it out in the film. In the
Okay,
film, by the way, behind the stage door as well.
all right,
It's
and
on.
you can get that on Amazon as well. And
Yes, Amazon, Tubi, and Apple TV Plus, and Apple iTunes, Verizon, FiOS, and many. It's probably easy to find. It's behind the stage door, and it should pop up easily enough for anybody.
yeah, so that it brings me back to that Monsters of Rock tour it was Van Halen, Scorpions, Dokken, Metallica.
Kingdom
Kingdom
Yeah,
Come.
Kingdom.
Yeah, right. Because I remember we were
Yeah,
at,
I was excited about the show.
but holy crap,
Metallica,
you had to sell a boatload of tickets to break even.
40,000 tickets to break even.
Yeah.
And you know, that's a lot of tickets. You're right, but it was a great show. Van Halen alone should have carried the boat. Metallica was coming on strong. They weren't anywhere near like they are now,
Right.
or made
It was right before
but
Injustice for All, because they premiered Harvester of Sorrows.
yeah, Scorpions could have done 10,000 people on their own easily, and
Yeah.
I thought this was pretty much a slam dunk. But the way the story goes, I lose $400,000 because I only do about 32,000 people. Now, in any business or anywhere, something that does 32,000 people, everybody should be jumping up and down and making a lot of money. So the deal was upside down. The deal was not a good deal, and that was the problem.
Yeah,
And that
it's interesting because
really put us out of
I'm always thinking about the financial aspect, but you go into each one of these bands has a guarantee. So Van Halen has their huge guarantee by Ed Loeffler, who negotiates it. Then you got Doc McGee doing the Scorpions guarantee. Then you got, so you and Metallica, so you're putting out these guarantees for each one of these bands. And that's a lot. That's a ton of money up front. So
You
yeah,
got it.
holy cow.
And you have to pay a big deposit, 50% deposit, and a lot of them want the money before the balance before they go on, or like while they're on stage. It's called a settlement. You sit down with the tour accountant and go through some numbers and pay them, and it was rough. We paid everybody, and we made good. You know, we didn't want to tarnish my reputation more than anything, and it was sad. So again, you can get the results of how I solved that.
Yeah.
In a crazy way, but yeah, it almost put us out of business. It really did. We were still able to pay the employees their regular salary, and my partner and myself did not get a salary for over a year. Battling back through that bad situation, because the business is such that you cannot make a killing on these shows. You might say, oh man, XYZ did like somebody just did a show the other night, a country show in Pittsburgh that I did not do. And it did 61,000 people. You think, holy man, that promoter made a bundle. Well, he made money. Most of the time, the bands get a gigantic guarantee versus 90% or 95% of gross.
Yeah. So yeah, you explained that. You said there were bands that wanted over the gross because they wanted a cut of the parking, and so
exactly. Oh
so
yeah,
what's Taylor Swift getting? I mean,
well,
that's the most mind-blowing thing I've ever seen in my years of music.
Oh, I don't want to quote that whole situation in an interview, but it was all wrong. Okay, it was all wrong. Why did StubHub have tickets when everybody else couldn't get tickets? Right. Why did all the scouts have tickets whenever they had to shut down Ticketmaster? You try to answer those questions. Hopefully the federal government will get a brain and ask the right questions whenever it comes to the hearing.
Yeah. So once again, the book is Behind the Stage Door by Rich Engler. The forwards, I mean, right off the bat, you got Paul Kantner from Jefferson Airplane, Alex Lifeson from Rush, one of my other favorite bands, Doc McGee, currently manager of Kiss, but he managed just about everyone. He's, they portray him in the Motley Crue movie, not well, but he was with Motley Crue at one time. But it's just like, I'm telling you, Rich, I've read tons. Rock biographies are up there. This has cracked my top 5. It's brilliant. it goes in the business aspect. And, oh, you talk about the writers too, the famous, everyone knows about the famous Eminem writer with Van Halen, but you go into some of the writers and some of the bands stick to them. And if there's one band in particular that you didn't get the right towel color and they went apeshit. So it's all in there. So I want to,
Literally.
before we end the interview, I want to pivot. So we live, Anna Maria Island near Bradenton, Florida, and you've been bringing some amazing shows here to our civic center. How did that come about, and how does that work out? Can you go into that for us?
Yes. One, I wish I would have started doing that years ago because, as everybody knows, up in the Northeast, it's brutally cold and snowy, and down there it's nice and cozy.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it for two reasons. One, I enjoy the venue, and I enjoy working with the folks down there. And my wife and I, get a little bit of a vacation about 3 days before the show and 3 or 4 days after the show. We stick around down there. We do not have a winter home down there, but that whole area is like our winter home because we're invited to stay with different people at different times down there, and we just absolutely love it. But anyway, somebody from the tourism bureau down there used to work in Pittsburgh, and they knew of me, and they said, "Rich, would you be interested in doing a concert series down here? We'll support it with some advertising, and because we want to bring people into the Bradenton, Anna Maria Island area, and this would be a great spot." And I know a couple places, and ironically, we were going on vacation down there several times, and that's that was kind of a natural. I go, really? This is like a dream come true. So I was able to strike a deal with the folks down there, and for 4 or 5 shows a season, and the season would be the winter season, which would be from December, January, February, March time period, and maybe in April. I did the Whalers down there on like the first week of April, because a lot of the snowbirds stick around till at least mid-April, and we want to cater to not only the snowbirds but to the vacationers and to the locals down there, because all the locals have to drive either to Clearwater or Tampa for the bigger shows.
Right.
So I'm a little bit hampered by the capacity, because my capacity outdoors there is about 1,000, and indoors we're about 700. So
yeah. Although, well, first of all, it blew my mind that I saw Grand Funk 2 blocks from my house. But secondly, I think they could have got a ton. There was a ton more that they could have gotten in for Grand Funk outdoors.
Yeah, they do, but it's the town, the borough, and everything there. It's about the parking.
Okay.
So they don't want parking on people's lawns or anything like that. So if we could accommodate more parking, we could obviously do more people. So we have to keep it in. Well, we have to stick within the rules, and the rules of do this many people, because that's how many cars we can park. So that kind of rules the roost.
So the guarantee is the village coming up with that, or are you part of that? Or are you just promoting it? Are you a liaison between the bands? How does that work? How does that work out?
Yes, I engineer the negotiation with the artist. I negotiate the rider, the contract rider, which is usually 20 or 30 pages deep of do's and don'ts. I do all that for them. I orchestrate the advertising suggestions of what we do and how we do it when we go on sale. and I uh,
Well, it's done
get
through
the
the
contract.
iTickets, which is just great too. It's seamless. You can have it on your phone.
Exactly. That was the ticket company I used up here a lot for a lot of my Christian shows, and I turned the center on to them, and that worked out really well. And yeah, and I end up producing the show for them, and they put sponsors together. Obviously, this sandbar down there, and
Right.
Cedar Cove Resort, and others have stepped up and had sponsorship. And yeah, I get paid. I get paid to produce everything.
That's fantastic. I can't thank you enough for bringing quality music to my doorstep, basically. Rich, I can't thank you enough for being on with me. You have an open invitation when you're in town. I'd like to take you to dinner, lunch, whatever, and we're gonna. We exchange emails, but this has been just a wonderful conversation. What can we expect in 2023, 2024?
Well, I'm closing in on.
You don't have to.
Uh,
I mean, if you want to name names, that's fine. Or if you just want to give us a little hint, that's fine as well.
well, I could, and I think that we have a lot of requests for Queen. Of course, Freddie's no longer with us, but I think I'm able to land one of the biggest Queen, the biggest Queen tributes, which would be great. That's one of them.
Wow.
And from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, Loggins and Messina, I think I've close to landing Jim Messina down there and doing all the hits of Loggins and Messina and Jim Messina and Poco and the bands that he was in the past.
Yeah.
So that would be a good one, and some others that I just can't talk about right now.
Okay. No, that's great. Oh man. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Rich, thanks for joining us. Once
I
again,
did want to say one more thing
yes.
about film. Now the film is out. We talked about that it's streaming. They can get that. It's called Behind the Stage Door as well on Amazon and Tubi and some of the others. But and the book, richengler.com, and it comes out. You'll get it in 2 days, and I'll personalize it and autograph it for you as well.
Awesome. Thank
So,
you. Thank you so much.
And Joe, you and the folks, keep on rocking.
You know it.